So, last year I was trying to decide what the topic for my final degree project would be, and then it came to mind. What if The Legend of Zelda was set in a world of Norse mythology? It's a challenge since Zelda has its own cultures and religion. Should I do it? Sigh, fine, fine, I'll do it. Hi, my name is Elri, and today's video will be the first in a series of videos, hopefully, where I try my best to turn characters from Zelda Tears of the Kingdom into Norse mythology through concept art. Disclaimer, I'm not a Norse mythology expert, so please be nice in case something does not fit or is incorrect. As you probably have guessed by now, the first character I'm going to introduce is Link, the protagonist of the Zelda series. Let's discuss Link's design. First things first, I did a lot of research about Zelda for this project, and that made me feel a little nostalgic, so I tried to stick with the green attire for him. I really like the concept of the Triforce being like red for Ganondorf, blue for Princess Zelda, and green for Link. In fact, apparently, while Nintendo was trying to come out with Link's design in Ocarina of Time, they were heavily inspired by Disney's Peter Pan, as we can see in his green clothes, green hat, and the fact that he is a child who cannot grow because he is in Kokiri Forest, just like Peter Pan is in Neverland. And this actually made me really excited because I really like Disney, so yeah, green it is. Additionally, in mythology, the color green in clothing is usually worn by nature spirits and fairies, as it is a symbol of nature and renewal. These creatures are also deeply connected to nature. In case you're curious, just like I was while doing this research, the reason why Link wears blue in both Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom is so that the player can distinguish him from the landscape. When I read that, I was like, oh my god, this is so cool, like this is such a cool fact to know. So, for his redesign, and actually every other Zelda character I did, I tried to find a character in Norse mythology that could fit their stories. In Link's case, I initially thought of Thor, but after a while I realized that their stories don't match enough. The same thing happened with the rest of the Zelda characters. So what I tried to do instead was combine different characters from Norse mythology and mix that with Link's defining characteristics, the things that make Link, Link. Does that make sense? For example, in Norse mythology, there are two types of elves. One of them is the Light Elves, who live in Alfheim. Alfheim is the place that I use as inspiration for Hyrule's castle and town, and it is also one of the 9 worlds in Norse mythology. And then there are the Dark Elves. The contrast between these two types could work similarly to the Hylians and the Giga clan. So Light Elves could serve as a good reference for Link and other Hylians. Thor, as mentioned before, is one of the most famous Norse gods. He's strong, brave, and wields the legendary hammer Mjolnir, or however it's pronounced. Not only is he a warrior, he is also a protector. He fights off giants, monsters, and every kind of threat to the world, just like Link defends Hyrule from evil. Another figure that Link reminds me of is Sigurd. Sigurd isn't a god, he's a legendary hero known for slaying the dragon Fafnir. Just like Link, his story is one of destiny, courage, and wielding a sword of great power. Sigurd's fate is written long before he begins his journey. His purpose is to rise, to fight, and to triumph. And just like him, Link is a hero bound by fate. No matter how many lifetimes pass, he always returns to face evil. Coming back to the design process, I decided to make him wear warm clothes. I don't know if I was inspired by God of War, but in my mind, it felt fitting when thinking about Norse mythology. I also want to give an honorary mention to the shoulder pad I designed. As I said, creatures like fairies and elves are strongly connected to nature, so I thought it would be really cute to have it embroidered with plants. As for the way I'm rendering this, I tried to replicate how Nintendo paints Zelda characters. It was a little confusing at first, but after doing a bit more research, I found this really cool video by Thomaclock where he explains how to recreate the art style. In case you guys are interested, I'll leave the link in the description below. Do you get it? While rendering, I got to the point where I had to paint the hands and the sword, and for a moment I was like, oh, right. His arm. Link loses his arm in Tears of the Kingdom. So I started working. At first, I didn't know if I wanted to give him a robotic arm made by Pura, since the C-card is technologically advanced drive. But then I remembered once again, right, Link gets Rauru's arm. I started thinking again, and I ran into another problem. If Tears of the Kingdom takes place in two very different moments in its timeline, one in the present and one in the past, how am I supposed to replicate that in Norse mythology? Like, is there even a distinction between past and present in Norse mythology like in Zelda? And besides, Rauru's original arm is really cool. How am I supposed to compare to that? So I kept researching and I found this really inspired thing called earth markings. From what I gathered, these are little drawings meant to represent concepts in a symbolic way. And that looked pretty tribal to me, so I thought, okay, let me try it myself. So I came up with this design. And since it's Rauru's arm and not Link's, I tried to represent who Rauru is as a character. He has the power of light, and light means life. According to Norse myth, the beginning of life was fire and ice, so honestly, I just closed my eyes and tried to represent that, just letting the pencil flow with my heart, since this kind of art seems to be transmitted by the soul. Finally, I just wrapped it around Link's rotten arm. The next step was to do the rings, right? Each one of them contains the power that the sages lent Link throughout the adventure. While designing this, I had just two things in mind. I want them to be colorful and I want them to be very different from each other. So I came up with this design first, but then I was like, no. So I tried again and then I came up with this. Cool, I just had to put it all together. Each of the rings has a rune on it that represents the power it holds. For example, the pinky has this rune that supposedly represents wind. Okay, cool, it's done. Now we have to draw Link with his new cool rings. I gotta come clean with you guys. Honestly, for a moment, I was weirdly hyped about taking one of his arms away and just letting him learn how to live without one after being attacked by Ganondorf. But then I remembered that in the games, Link uses bigger weapons and bows, so it was a discarded idea. In fact, the Norse god Tyr also resembles Link in that sense. He is the god of war and justice, and one of his most famous stories is about how he lost his hand. Tyr, alongside other gods, tricked Fenrir, a powerful and monstrous wolf destined to play a major role in Ragnarok, the end of the world. The gods fear Fenrir's strength, so they challenge him to a test. If he could break free from their magical ribbon, it would prove his power. Fenrir, suspicious of their true intentions, demanded that one of the gods place their hand in his mouth as a sign of trust. Tyr, knowing they would not release Fenrir, willingly sacrificed his right hand. This is where Link's story connects to Tyr's. He doesn't lose his arm by accident, he loses it in sacrifice. Another cool concept that I thought about before realizing that he has different abilities thanks to Rauru's arm was for Link to have small stones with runes in this little pouch over here. When activated, they would also allow Link to have different abilities, but sadly it had to be discarded. Do you think it would have been a cool mechanic? Speaking of runes, and coming back to the point that I was worried about Norse mythology not having different moments in its timeline, I came across the fact that there are two different types of Futhark, this being the rune alphabet used in the Viking Age. There's the Elder Futhark and the Younger Futhark. The Elder Futhark is the oldest form of the runic alphabet, used from the 1st century until the 9th, before being simplified into the Younger Futhark, which has only 16 characters compared to the 24 runes in the Elder Futhark. I applied this knowledge to differentiate how different characters write runes. In the past, the Sonai and the rest would use the Elder Futhark, while in the present, different tribes would use the younger one. In case you're confused by Link's hair color, At first I thought about making him blonde like in the game, but I ended up making him a brunette, inspired by his depiction in Twilight Princess. Along with that, I styled his hair with braids and dreadlocks, something very characteristic of Viking aesthetics. Finally, we get to the Master Sword. I was about to transform it into a hammer, mirroring Thor's one since, well, the Master Sword works a lot like it. It's a weapon of the gods, tied to a chosen hero, and can only be wielded by someone worth it. Just as Mjolnir always returns to Thor, the Master Sword is bound to Link's destiny. But I'll be honest, changing the type of weapon made me a little bit afraid of the Master Sword losing a bit of its essence. Besides, it hasn't always changed its design throughout the games, and I felt I had to be loyal to that. The guard of the sword features a spiral design. The spirals represent the coil form of Jomungandr, or however it's called, the World Serpent, one of the greatest enemies in Norse mythology. The World Serpent is a symbol of cycles, of fate, destruction, and rebirth. This design choice reflects not only the eternal struggling cycle between Thor and the Serpent, but also the duality of their powers. Additionally, if we look at Mjolnir, Thor's hammer, many of its designs feature snake motifs, reinforcing the connection between Thor and the World Serpent. So that was it for today. Since Nintendo finally achieved their goal of making an open world Zelda game, many of us are wondering what the next step for the series is gonna be. Do you think it would be cool to do something different, like changing the mythology of the game? Please let me know in the comments. I hope you guys liked the video, and I wish you all a very nice day or night. Bye!